Ta Wu Park wiped sweat from his brow as he tightened the final bolt on the cargo shuttle's engine. His hands moved with practiced ease, finding the perfect tension without needing to check the calibration tool. At 32, he was known throughout Lunar Base Horizon as the man who could fix anything. His colleagues often joked that machines spoke to him. There, he muttered to himself, giving the engine housing a gentle pat. The shuttle had arrived 3 days ago, with its propulsion system making an unusual whining noise. Other mechanics had declared it would need a complete overhaul, but Ta Wu had found the problem in minutes: a misaligned fuel regulator and a hairline crack in one cooling conduit. He closed his toolkit and stepped back to admire his work. The lunar gravity made his movements feel unnaturally light, even after 2 years stationed here. Through the bay windows, Earth hummed like a blue marble against the blackness, reminding him of home. Not that Seoul had felt much like home these past few years. After his father's death and his broken engagement, the moon had offered an escape. Park. Emergency meeting in Bay 4, called Jai-ho, his supervisor, running past the open service bay. The urgency in his voice made Ta Wu grab his toolkit without question. "What's happening?" Ta Wu called, jogging to catch up. "Something crashed near the northern ridge. Command thinks it's not one of ours." Jai-ho was already disappearing around the corner. "Not one of ours." The words echoed in Ta Wu's mind as he quickened his pace. If it wasn't a human vessel, then what was it? When Ta Wu arrived at Bay 4, he found it transformed into a makeshift command center. Screens displayed satellite imagery of a crash site about 12 kilometers from the base. Commander Shin stood in the center, barking orders to the gathered staff. "The survey team is suiting up now," Shin was saying. "We need the rover prepped and ready to go in 20 minutes. Ta Wu stepped forward for a better look at the screens. The crashed object was partly buried in lunar dust, but its shape was unmistakable: a sleek, silvery craft with no visible engines or windows. Its design was unlike anything Ta Wu had ever seen, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "Sir," he said, raising his hand like a schoolboy, "what do we know about it?" Commander Shin turned, noticing him for the first time. "Hark. Good. Initial scans show minimal radiation. Size is approximately 18 meters long, 7 wide. Materials analysis is inconclusive." "Any signs of life?" someone asked. "Negative, but there are unusual energy signatures. Could be a power source or—" The commander hesitated. "Well, we don't know what it is." 3 hours later, Ta Wu watched from the observation window as the survey team's rover returned, towing the alien craft on a flat trailer. Up close, the vessel was even stranger. Its surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it appear both metallic and somehow shadowy at the same time. "There's something inside," said Commander Shin, standing beside him. "Some kind of machine. We need your expertise." Ta Wu turned to the commander in surprise. "Me? Shouldn't the science team?" "The science team is analyzing the hull and propulsion system, if it has one. But this thing inside, it appears mechanical. You're the best mechanic we have." "What does it look like?" Ta Wu asked, curiosity overtaking his hesitation. Commander Shin pulled up an image on his tablet. "See for yourself." The picture showed what looked like a humanoid figure, easily 3 meters tall, made of the same dark material as the ship. It sat in what appeared to be a reclined position, surrounded by curved panels and unfamiliar instruments. "Is it a robot?" "A spacesuit?" Ta Wu asked. "Unknown. It's not responding to any stimuli. Could be damaged in the crash, could be dormant, could be dead if it was ever alive." The commander's face was grim. "I need someone who can figure out what it is without breaking it. When do I start?" "Now. The craft has been moved to the quarantine bay. We've established it poses no immediate biological or radiation danger." The commander handed him a security badge. "Against my better judgment, I'm approving your request to examine it alone." Ta Wu blinked. "Sir, I didn't request. You were about to, Commander Shin said with the hint of a smile. I know you, Park. You work better without people hovering over your shoulder. The quarantine bay was eerily quiet when Taowu entered. The alien craft sat in the center, a section of its hull now open like a door. Two security officers nodded to him as he approached. We'll be right outside, one said. Emergency protocols are in effect. Anything unusual happens, you hit that button. He pointed to a red panel on the wall. Taowu nodded, then stepped toward the opening in the craft. His heart pounded in his chest. No human had ever encountered confirmed alien technology before. Now he was about to touch it. The interior was dimly lit by emergency lights the team had set up. The space was larger than it had appeared from outside, with smooth walls covered in what looked like circuit patterns. At the center sat the figure he'd seen in the image. Up close, the figure was even more impressive. It was clearly humanoid, but with proportions that seemed slightly off. Longer arms, broader shoulders, a more angular head. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them, like optical illusions etched into metal. Hello, Taowu said softly, feeling foolish. The figure didn't respond. He set down his toolkit and began a visual inspection, careful not to touch anything yet. The figure appeared to be sitting in some kind of control chair, with its arms resting on panels covered in symbols. Its face was a smooth plate with no visible eyes or mouth, yet Taowu couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching him. After completing his visual assessment, Taowu took out his diagnostic scanner. The readings made no sense. The device detected both metallic and organic compounds, energy flows that followed no recognizable pattern, and materials that didn't match anything in its database. What are you? He whispered. Taking a deep breath, Taowu reached out and gently touched the figure's arm. The metal, if it was metal, felt warm under his fingers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint blue glow pulsed beneath his fingertips, spreading outward like ripples in water. The patterns on the figure's surface began to glow with the same light, tracing circuits throughout its body. Taowu tried to pull his hand away, but some force held it in place. The glow traveled up Taowu's arm, not painful but strange, like electricity without the shock. It reached his shoulder, then his neck, and finally his head. Suddenly, his mind filled with images, stars seen from unfamiliar angles, worlds with purple skies, and 3 moons, cities built into the sides of mountains that floated in the air. As quickly as it began, the connection broke. Taowu stumbled backward, gasping. The figure's face now glowed with a soft blue light in a pattern that reminded him of a circuit board. Did you just scan me? Taowu asked, his voice shaking. The figure didn't move, but the lights on its face shifted slightly, forming new patterns. Taowu's communicator crackled. Park. Everything okay in there? We're picking up unusual energy readings. He reached for the communicator without taking his eyes off the figure. Everything's fine, he said, though he wasn't sure if that was true. I think it's waking up. As if in response, the figure's head tilted slightly. The movement so subtle Taowu almost missed it. The blue glow pulsed once, twice, then settled into a steady light. Taowu had the distinct impression that whatever this thing was, it had recognized something in him, something it had been looking for. And somehow, deep in his bones, Taowu knew that his life would never be the same again. For 3 days, Taowu barely slept as he worked to understand the Guardian's technology. He ate meals at his workstation, sometimes forgetting to eat at all, until Jaiho forced a protein bar into his hand. The quarantine bay had become his temporary home, with a cot set up in the corner that rarely saw use. Each day revealed new mysteries. The entity, which Taowu had started calling the Guardian in his notes, was unlike any machine humanity had created. Its inner workings seemed to blend technology with something almost biological. You're not just circuits in metal, are you? Ta Wu muttered as he carefully mapped another section of the Guardian's internal structure. He had begun talking to it, even though it remained silent and mostly motionless. The blue lights on its face would occasionally shift in response to his voice, giving Ta Wu the uncanny feeling that it understood him. On the morning of the fourth day, Da Hyun, the base's chief scientist, finally received clearance to enter the quarantine bay. He stood at the entrance for several moments, taking in the sight of Ta Wu surrounded by holographic diagrams and disassembled scanning equipment. "Have you made any progress?" Da Hyun asked, approaching cautiously. Ta Wu looked up, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "It's alive," he said without preamble. Da Hyun raised an eyebrow. "Define alive." "Its neural pathways are like nothing I've ever seen," Ta Wu explained, pulling up a complex 3D model on his tablet. "It's not damaged so much as hibernating. Look here." The model showed something resembling a nervous system, but with pathways that branched and reconnected in impossible patterns, sometimes seeming to pass through each other without touching. "These aren't just circuits," Ta Wu continued. "They process information like a brain, but on a quantum level. And they all connect to this." He zoomed in on a central structure, a crystalline formation about the size of a human heart, glowing faintly with the same blue light that occasionally pulsed through the Guardian's body. "What is it?" Da Hyun asked, leaning closer. "I think it's a consciousness core, like a brain and a power source combined. But it's damaged." Ta Wu pointed to a hairline fracture running through the crystal. "Energy can't flow properly, so the Guardian can't fully activate." Da Hyun's scientific caution battled with his curiosity. "Guardian? You're already naming it." "It fits," Ta Wu said simply. "Everything about its design suggests it was built to protect something, or someone." Da Hyun studied the diagrams silently for several minutes. "This technology is centuries beyond ours. Even if you're right about the damage, we have no way to repair something like this." "I might," Ta Wu said quietly. "Explain." Ta Wu hesitated, knowing how it would sound. "When I first touched it, we connected somehow. I saw images, stars, planets, cities unlike anything on Earth. I think it was showing me its memories." "That's impossible," Da Hyun said automatically, then caught himself. "Though I suppose a giant alien machine is also impossible, yet here we are." "The connection went both ways," Ta Wu continued. "It learned from me too. And ever since, I've been getting intuitions about how it works. Knowledge I shouldn't have." To demonstrate, Ta Wu reached out and touched a panel on the Guardian's arm. The panel slid open, revealing intricate mechanisms that hadn't been visible in any of their scans. "How did you know that was there?" Da Hyun asked, stunned. Ta Wu shook his head. "I just knew." Later that day, Commander Shin called an emergency meeting. Ta Wu explained his findings to a room full of skeptical officers and scientists. "You're suggesting we allow you to attempt repairs on an alien entity we know nothing about?" Commander Shin asked when Ta Wu finished. "Yes, sir. I believe I can fix it. And if you fix it, and it turns out to be hostile." Ta Wu had asked himself the same question. "It's had multiple opportunities to harm us. When it partially activated during my examination, it could have attacked. Instead, it tried to communicate." The debate lasted for hours. Some argued for caution, suggesting they wait for experts from Earth. Others wanted to disassemble the Guardian entirely. Ta Wu argued passionately that both approaches would be mistakes. "Its systems are deteriorating," he explained. "The damage is getting worse. If we wait too long, the core may collapse entirely." In the end, Ta Wu's understanding of the Guardian proved too valuable to ignore. Commander Shin gave conditional approval for the repair attempt, with extensive safety measures in place. The next morning, Ta Wu stood before the Guardian, surrounded by monitoring equipment and armed security personnel. He had spent the night designing specialized tools based on his intuitive understanding of the Guardian's technology. "I can fix it," He insisted when Dahyun expressed final doubts. But I'll need to manually reconnect the pathways. The fracture in the core needs to be sealed from within. What does that mean exactly? Commander Shin asked. It means I need to connect my nervous system to its neural network, Ta Wu explained. Temporarily, he added, seeing their expressions. That's not happening, the commander said flatly. Sir, with respect, it's the only way. Human technology can't interface precisely enough with these quantum pathways. But I can, because we've already established a partial connection. After more debate and several safety contingencies, Ta Wu received reluctant permission. He donned a modified neural interface suit designed to monitor his vital signs and brain activity. If anything went wrong, the system would sever the connection immediately. This procedure is dangerous, Dahyun warned as technicians attached the final sensors. You'll be exposing yourself to unknown energies. I know, Ta Wu said simply. He approached the Guardian, now laid horizontal on a specially constructed platform. Using tools of his own design, Ta Wu carefully opened the Guardian's chest plate, revealing the damaged crystalline core at its center. The fracture was more visible now, a jagged line disrupting the flow of blue energy. Beginning neural interface in 3, 2, 1. Ta Wu placed his hands on either side of the crystal and closed his eyes. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Ta Wu gasped as his consciousness expanded, suddenly aware of every circuit and pathway within the Guardian's vast system. He could feel the damage like a wound in his own body, the fractured core sending painful feedback through the connection. With effort, Ta Wu focused his thoughts. He visualized the fracture closing, the disrupted pathways reconnecting. The Guardian's systems responded, directing energy where Ta Wu guided it. The crystal began to glow brighter, the blue light pulsing in rhythm with Ta Wu's heartbeat. His neural activity is off the charts. Dahyun's voice came from far away. We should abort. Wait, Ta Wu managed to say, though his voice sounded strange to his own ears. Almost. There. In his mind, Ta Wu reached for the final broken connection, a quantum pathway that linked the Guardian's memory systems to its consciousness core. As he connected the pathway, a surge of energy flowed through him like lightning. Ta Wu cried out, his back arching as power coursed through his body. For a moment, Ta Wu wasn't sure where he ended and the Guardian began. Their minds merged, sharing thoughts and memories at incredible speed. He saw stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling, and the creation of the Guardians, sentient machines designed to preserve knowledge across countless millennia. Then, with a final surge of energy, the connection stabilized. The fracture sealed completely, the crystal now glowing with steady, bright blue light. Ta Wu felt himself being gently pushed back into his own mind as the Guardian's consciousness fully awakened. As Ta Wu connected the final circuit, energy surged through him. He stumbled backward, caught by security officers who had rushed forward. The Guardian's body hummed with power, the blue glow spreading through every pattern on its surface. Slowly, the Guardian sat up, its head turned, surveying the room full of humans frozen in shock and fear. Then its gaze settled on Ta Wu. The featureless faceplate shifted, reconfiguring into something that resembled eyes, orbs of swirling blue light that focused immediately on him. Ta Wu stepped forward despite the protests around him. He somehow knew, with absolute certainty, that this moment had been inevitable from the first touch. "Hello," he said simply. The Guardian tilted its head slightly, studying him. Then, to everyone's astonishment, it spoke, not with sound, but directly into Ta Wu's mind. "Hello, Ta Wu Park. You have awakened me. And now we have much to discuss. You have restored me." The Guardian's voice resonated directly in Ta Wu's mind, causing him to stumble back in surprise. The voice wasn't sound in the traditional sense. It felt like thoughts forming naturally in his consciousness, yet with a distinct otherness to them. "I am Sentinel, protector of the knowledge of the Chimera." The room around them erupted in chaos. Commander Shin was shouting orders, security personnel were raising weapons, and scientists were frantically checking readings on their equipment. Did it just move? Da-hyun gasped. Ta-Wu, get away from it. But Ta-Wu stood transfixed, unable to look away from the glowing blue orbs that served as the Guardian's eyes. "It's speaking to me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "In my mind." "What's it saying?" Commander Shin demanded, approaching cautiously. Ta-Wu raised a hand, asking for silence. The Guardian, Sentinel, was sharing information at an incredible rate, images and concepts flowing into his mind faster than he could fully process them. "It says its name is Sentinel," Ta-Wu translated, speaking slowly as he sorted through the flood of information. "It was created by a civilization called the Chimeri. They lived, I'm not sure how to measure it, but a very long time ago." Sentinel rose to its full height, towering over everyone in the room. Several security officers raised their weapons higher, but Commander Shin signaled them to hold position. "The Chimeri were advanced beyond anything we can imagine," Ta-Wu continued, still receiving Sentinel's message. "They created Guardians like Sentinel to preserve their knowledge and technology after they were gone." "Gone? What happened to them?" Da-hyun asked, his scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming his fear. Ta-Wu closed his eyes briefly, focusing on the stream of information. "They ascended, transformed into a non-physical state of existence, but they left the Guardians behind to watch over younger species and share knowledge when the time was right." Commander Shin stepped forward. "Ask it why it came here." "To our moon, specifically." Ta-Wu didn't need to ask. Sentinel was already answering. "It didn't intend to crash here," Ta-Wu explained. "It was damaged during a journey through. I don't have words for it. Some kind of space fold. Our moon was the nearest habitable outpost where it could seek repairs." The Guardian moved suddenly, causing everyone to tense, but it merely extended one hand, palm up, toward Ta-Wu. In the center of its palm, a small holographic display appeared, showing complex data patterns. "I have analyzed all beings at this outpost." Sentinel's voice spoke in Ta-Wu's mind. "You alone possess the resonance pattern compatible with my systems. I choose you, Ta-Wu Park." Ta-Wu blinked in surprise. "What does that mean?" "Choose me for what?" The answer came as another flood of images and concepts. Ta-Wu saw Guardians throughout the galaxy, each paired with a being from a different species. He saw these pairs working together, protecting knowledge, helping civilizations advance, preventing conflicts. The Guardians were designed to work with partners, Ta-Wu explained to the others, his voice filled with wonder. The Chimeri called them the Chosen. When the original masters were gone, each Guardian was programmed to find a compatible being to bond with. "Bond?" Commander Shin asked sharply. "What kind of bond?" "A neural link, a sharing of minds." Ta-Wu struggled to explain concepts he barely understood himself. "Not a takeover, a partnership. The Guardian gains understanding of the species it works with, and the Chosen gains access to the Guardian's knowledge and abilities." "And it wants this bond with you?" Da-hyun asked, concern evident in his voice. Ta-Wu nodded slowly. "It says I'm the only one here with a compatible neural pattern. The repair work I did, the connection we established, it was only possible because of this compatibility." Over the next few hours, a tense dialogue developed. Sentinel communicated through Ta-Wu, answering questions about its origins, purpose, and capabilities. The Guardian possessed knowledge that could advance human technology by centuries, perhaps millennia. It offered to share this knowledge freely, but only through its chosen partner. Word of the alien presence reached Earth quickly. While scientists at Lunar Base Horizon continued their analysis, officials back home held emergency meetings to determine how to respond to this unprecedented situation. 3 days after Sentinel's awakening, a transmission arrived from Earth Central Command. The Guardian is to be transported to Earth for comprehensive study, announced Director Jin, head of the newly formed Extraterrestrial Technology Division. Its knowledge must be shared with all of humanity, not filtered through a single individual. And what about its request for a chosen partner? Commander Shin asked. That is precisely our concern, Director Jin replied. We cannot allow one person to have exclusive access to such advanced technology. The Guardian must be studied directly by our best scientists. And if it refuses to cooperate without its chosen? Da-hyun asked. Director Jin's expression hardened. Then we will find a way to access its knowledge without its cooperation. When Ta-woo was informed of this decision, he felt a knot form in his stomach. Over the past days, his connection with Sentinel had deepened. Even without formally accepting the bond, he could sense the Guardian's thoughts more clearly now, understanding its intentions and concerns. They don't understand what they're asking, Ta-woo told Sentinel privately. They think you're just a machine, a database they can download. Many species react with fear to what they do not understand, Sentinel replied in his mind. The Chimeri encountered this often. It is why the Guardians were designed to work through chosen individuals, to ease the transition of knowledge. The next morning, Security Chief He-jun arrived at the quarantine bay with a team of guards. Ta-woo Park, you are hereby relieved of your duties regarding the alien entity, He-jun announced formally. You will be escorted to your quarters and confined there until transport to Earth can be arranged. You can't do this, Ta-woo protested. Sentinel won't cooperate without. That is no longer your concern, He-jun interrupted. Step aside, please. As two guards moved to take Ta-woo's arms, Sentinel suddenly moved. With surprising speed for its size, the Guardian positioned itself between Ta-woo and the security team. Its blue eyes pulsed with increased intensity. My chosen cannot be separated from me. Sentinel's voice boomed, this time audible to everyone in the room. This would violate Prime directives. He-jun's hand moved to his sidearm. Stand down. This is your only warning. Please, Ta-woo stepped partially around Sentinel, hands raised. There's no need for violence. Let me explain. For tense minutes, Ta-woo mediated between the increasingly agitated security chief and the immovable Guardian. Finally, a compromise was reached. Ta-woo would remain with Sentinel, while Commander Shin consulted with Earth authorities about how to proceed. That night, alone with Sentinel in the quarantine bay, Ta-woo faced the most difficult decision of his life. They will not stop, Sentinel observed. They fear what they do not control. They're just being cautious, Ta-woo defended, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. Humans have never encountered anything like you before. You must decide, Ta-woo Park, Sentinel said gently. I have chosen you, but you must choose as well. The bond cannot be forced. Ta-woo paced the room, mind racing. If he accepted the bond, he would gain access to knowledge beyond human imagination. But he would also be forever changed, tied to an alien intelligence in ways he couldn't fully understand. If he refused, Sentinel might be dissected by scientists trying to access its secrets, its consciousness possibly destroyed in the process. If I accept, he asked finally, what happens to me? Will I still be me? You will always be Ta-woo Park, Sentinel assured him. The bond enhances, it does not replace. Many chosen have come before you, across many species. All remain themselves, only more. Ta-woo took a deep breath, looking up at the towering Guardian that had crashed into his life just days ago. Something in his heart told him this moment had been waiting for him his entire life. Why he had always understood machines, why he had felt drawn to the stars, why he had never quite fit in anywhere else. I accept, he said finally, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I choose to be your partner, Sentinel. The Guardian's eyes glowed brighter, and it extended both hands toward him. Then let the bond begin. Facing an impossible choice, Ta-woo had made his decision. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The connection between Ta Wu and Sentinel deepened over the following days. The bonding process had been intense, a flood of light and information that left Ta Wu unconscious for nearly 6 hours. When he awoke, the world looked different. He could sense the electronic systems around him, feel the pulse of the base's power grid, understand the complex interplay of machines that kept them all alive on the lifeless lunar surface. "How do you feel?" Dahyun asked, checking Ta Wu's vital signs. The scientist had argued against the bonding, but had remained by his friend's side throughout. "Different," Ta Wu said simply. "But good. Clear, somehow." Sentinel stood nearby, its blue eyes dimmed to a softer glow. The Guardian had barely moved during Ta Wu's recovery, maintaining a silent vigil. "Your neural patterns have stabilized," Sentinel's voice spoke in Ta Wu's mind. "The initial integration is complete." Earth authorities had reluctantly allowed the bonding to proceed after Sentinel made it clear that no other option was acceptable, but they had imposed strict conditions. Ta Wu and Sentinel were to remain in the quarantine bay under constant observation, and Ta Wu was required to share all information he received from the Guardian. For Ta Wu, following this last condition proved challenging. The knowledge flowing from Sentinel wasn't like reading a book or hearing a lecture. It came as intuitive understanding, difficult to translate into words. "Try again," urged Commander Shin, who had replaced Security Chief Hajun as their primary contact. "Explain how the Guardian's propulsion system works." Ta Wu closed his eyes, letting Sentinel's knowledge flow through him. "It doesn't push or pull. It folds space, creates a temporary connection between 2 points." He opened his eyes, frustrated. "I can see it in my mind, but our language doesn't have the right words." The following morning, Ta Wu discovered a new ability. While examining a malfunctioning air recycler brought to the quarantine bay, he placed his hand on its casing and suddenly could see its inner workings in his mind, not just the physical components, but the flow of electricity, the movement of gases, the exact point where a microfracture was causing the malfunction. "There," he said, pointing to a spot that looked perfectly normal to everyone else. "The problem is a hairline crack in the 3rd catalytic chamber. It's too small to see, but it's disrupting the conversion process." When the technicians disassembled the unit, they found exactly what Ta Wu had described. "The joining enhances compatible traits in the Chosen," Sentinel explained later. "Your affinity for machines was the initial resonance that drew me to you. Now it has been amplified." Over the next week, Ta Wu's abilities grew stronger. He could instantly understand any technology he touched, seeing schematics and functions in his mind as clearly as if he had designed them himself. Word spread throughout the base, and soon people were bringing him their broken devices, marveling at how he could diagnose problems with just a touch. "Can all Chosen do this?" Ta Wu asked Sentinel one night. "Each bonding is unique," Sentinel replied. "The Guardian amplifies traits already present in the Chosen. The healer might gain enhanced medical abilities. A mathematician might perceive complex equations as visible patterns. You understand machines. It is why you were compatible." Despite the growing evidence of the bond's benefits, Earth authorities remained wary. Daily briefings with Director Jin became increasingly tense as she pressed for more concrete technological information that Ta Wu struggled to provide. "We've been patient," Director Jin said during one session, her image flickering on the communication screen. "But the Guardian's knowledge must be shared with humanity as a whole, not just with you, Mr. Park." "I'm trying," Ta Wu insisted, "but this isn't like downloading a file. The knowledge comes when it's needed, when I'm ready to understand it." 2 weeks after the bonding, while testing their new capabilities in a controlled experiment, Ta Wu and Sentinel received a faint signal that no one else could detect. It came not through the base's communication systems, but directly to Sentinel, and through their bond, to Ta Wu as well. "What is it?" Ta Wu asked, suddenly alert. Sentinel's eyes pulsed with urgency. "A distress call. Another Guardian is in danger." The signal was weak, but clear to Sentinel. "Another Guardian, damaged and trapped on a small moon, orbiting a gas giant in a nearby star system. Its chosen partner had been killed, and the Guardian was slowly shutting down. "We must respond," Sentinel insisted. "It is one of my kin. If it deactivates completely, all the knowledge it preserves will be lost." Taiwu immediately reported the signal to Commander Shin, who called an emergency meeting with Earth authorities. The debate lasted hours. Director Jin and her team saw an opportunity to study a second Guardian, but they were reluctant to allow Taiwu and Sentinel to leave the moon. "The distress call could be intercepted by our ships," Director Jin suggested. "We have vessels that could reach that location within weeks." "Too long," Sentinel responded through Taiwu. "My kin's systems are failing, and without a chosen or another Guardian to assist, your people could not help." "Then we'll send a team with you," Commander Shin offered. "Scientists, security personnel." "The vessel I require can only support 2, Sentinel interrupted. "My chosen and myself." The negotiations continued for days while the distant Guardian's signal grew steadily weaker. Taiwu could feel Sentinel's growing distress through their bond, a sense of urgency and responsibility that mirrored his own increasing frustration with the bureaucratic delays. Finally, a new figure entered the discussion. Base Commander Sunmei, recently arrived from Earth to oversee the situation personally, called Taiwu to her office. "I've reviewed all the reports," she said without preamble, "and I've come to a decision." Sunmai was a small woman with short gray hair and the rigid posture of someone who had spent decades in military service. Her reputation for tough, pragmatic decisions had preceded her arrival. "This technology belongs to humanity now," she declared, fixing Taiwu with a hard stare. "The Guardian will remain here for proper study. If there is another Guardian out there, we will recover it as well, but on our terms." "But the other Guardian is dying," Taiwu protested. "We need to help now." "That is not your decision to make," Sunmai said coldly. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of all duties related to the Guardian. A specialized team will take over." "You can't separate us," Taiwu argued. "The bond can be studied like any other phenomenon," Sunmai interrupted. "I've already ordered the Guardian to be moved to a secure facility for disassembly and analysis." Taiwu felt a chill run through him. "Disassembly? You're talking about killing a sentient being." "I'm talking about studying advanced technology," Sunmei corrected. "Your emotional attachment is precisely why you're being removed from the project." That night, lying awake in his quarters under guard, Taiwu could feel Sentinel's presence in his mind. Despite being physically separated, their bond remained strong. "They do not understand what they plan to do," Sentinel communicated. "Disassembly would destroy not just my physical form, but the consciousness within." "I know," Taiwu replied silently. "But what can we do? The base is locked down. You're under heavy guard." A plan formed between them, passing through their mental link without need for words. Taiwu saw the base's systems through Sentinel's perception. Security protocols, door mechanisms, the automated docking procedures for the research vessels. It would mean leaving everything behind, Taiwu thought. Becoming a fugitive. "The choice is yours," Sentinel responded. "But know that if we do not act, a piece of the universe's knowledge will be lost forever. And your people will destroy something they do not understand in their quest to understand it." Taiwu thought of his life before Sentinel. The loneliness, the feeling of never quite belonging. He thought of the dying Guardian, reaching out across space in its final moments. And he thought of Sunmi's cold eyes as she spoke of disassembly. "Let's do it," he decided. At precisely 2:17 am lunar time, the base experienced a cascading system failure. Emergency lights flickered on as primary power systems went offline. Security doors opened and closed in random patterns as their electronic locks reset. In the confusion, a figure moved swiftly through darkened corridors. Taiwu, guided by his enhanced understanding of the base's systems, he reached the secure bay where Sentinel was held just as the backup generators came online. "Hurry," he said, disabling the final security measure. Together, they moved quickly to the research vessel docking bay. The sleek exploration craft Horizon I sat ready for its scheduled mission to the far side of the moon. With his new abilities, Tawu interfaced directly with the ship's systems, overriding the launch protocols. Alarms began to sound as the base's systems came fully back online. Through the bay windows, Tawu could see security personnel rushing toward them. "Hold tight," he told Sentinel as the Guardian secured itself in the modified cargo area. The docking clamps released, and the ship lifted off with a gentle push of its maneuvering thrusters. By the time Commander Sunmai reached the control room, the Horizon I was already accelerating away from the lunar surface, setting course for deep space. In the cockpit, Tawu felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. Behind them was everything he had known. Ahead was an unknown vastness, filled with wonders and dangers he could barely imagine. "We have done what is necessary," Sentinel's calm voice spoke in his mind. "Now we must find my kin before it is too late." Tawu nodded, watching Earth and the moon grow smaller in the view screen. There would be no going back now. Their journey had only just begun. The journey to the distress signal took 8 days. Tawu spent most of that time learning to control his new abilities and absorbing knowledge from Sentinel. The research vessel, though advanced by human standards, was primitive compared to Guardian technology. With Sentinel's guidance, Tawu made modifications that allowed the ship to travel faster than its designers had ever imagined possible. "We're approaching the coordinates," Tawu announced as they entered an unfamiliar star system dominated by a massive gas giant. Its swirling storms of purple and gold would have been beautiful if not for the urgency of their mission. "The signal comes from within the asteroid field orbiting the fourth moon," Sentinel indicated. "Proceed with caution. The field is dense." Tawu navigated carefully through the tumbling rocks, some as small as his fist, others larger than their ship. The distress signal grew stronger, guiding them toward its source. There, Sentinel pointed to a particularly large asteroid. Unlike the others, this one held steady in its orbit, unaffected by the gravitational forces that tossed its neighbors about. "It's not natural," Tawu realized as they drew closer. The surface appeared rocky and pitted like any asteroid, but the shape was too regular, too perfect to be a random formation. "It is an outpost," Sentinel confirmed, "built by the Chimeri long ago as a way station for Guardians." As they approached, a section of the asteroid's surface shimmered and disappeared, revealing a docking bay large enough for their ship. Tawu guided the vessel inside, setting it down gently on the smooth floor. The opening sealed behind them. An atmosphere flooded the chamber. "We can breathe here?" Tawu asked in surprise. "The outpost adapts to the needs of its visitors," Sentinel explained. "It has scanned our vessel and created an appropriate environment." Tawu checked the external sensors. Temperature normal. Atmosphere similar to Earth's. Gravity slightly lighter than lunar standard. Together, they exited the ship. The docking bay opened into a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling that somehow gave the impression of infinite space, despite being enclosed within the asteroid. At the center of the chamber stood 3 figures, each accompanied by a guardian similar to Sentinel, but with subtle differences in design and coloration. Tawu approached cautiously, Sentinel walking beside him. The 3 figures were unlike any beings he had ever seen. One appeared reptilian, with scaled skin in shades of copper and emerald. Another seemed composed entirely of water, its humanoid form rippling and flowing within a barely visible containment field. The third resembled a walking crystal formation, facets catching light and refracting it in rainbow patterns. "Welcome, Tawu Park of Earth," said the crystalline being, its voice a melodious chime. "I am Jin of the Luminar. We have awaited your arrival." "How do you know my name?" Tawu asked, unable to hide his surprise. "Your guardian has been communicating with us since your bonding," explained the reptilian being. "I am Mayul of the Drax Confederation. My people have traveled the stars for millennia. And I am Min Seo of the Aquari, said the water being, its voice somehow both bubbling and clear, mathematician and cartographer of the outer reaches. We are the chosen council, Jin explained, gesturing to include all of them. For millennia, Guardians have selected beings to help maintain balance in the galaxy. We monitor threats, preserve knowledge, and guide younger species toward peaceful advancement. I don't understand, Ta Wu said. The distress signal was genuine, Yule interrupted, but not immediate. A Guardian was indeed damaged, but we recovered it centuries ago. The signal was set to activate when a new Guardian approached your system. It was a test. Ta Wu asked, looking at Sentinel with confusion. A necessary precaution, Sentinel responded. We needed to confirm the strength of our bond and your willingness to act on behalf of the greater good. Please, join us, Min Seo invited, flowing toward a central platform where seats had appeared, each designed to perfectly accommodate their different physiologies. As they sat, a holographic display appeared above the platform, showing a map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light indicated the locations of Guardians and their chosen partners throughout the stars. Humans are not the first species to respond with fear to a Guardian's appearance, Jin explained. Many try to seize the technology, to control what they do not understand. That is why we work through chosen partners, Yule added, to bridge the gap between Guardian knowledge and developing civilizations. Throughout the next hours, Ta Wu learned more about the Guardians and their mission. The Chimerae had been one of the first intelligent species in the galaxy, evolving billions of years before humans. They had created the Guardians as repositories of knowledge before transcending physical form entirely. Your species has been observed for many generations, Min Seo explained. Human technological leaps have often been subtly guided by Guardian influence, preparing Earth for eventual contact. The lunar landing, the internet, quantum computing, Jin listed, all nudged along at critical moments by Guardians working through human innovators who never knew they were chosen. But why now? Ta Wu asked. Why make direct contact with Earth at this point? The three chosen beings exchanged glances, and the mood in the chamber darkened perceptibly. Sentinel stepped forward, its blue eyes pulsing with intensity. A darkness approaches, Sentinel warned. The Void Eaters seek to consume all knowledge, all civilization. That is why I awaken now, why I needed to find you. The holographic display shifted, showing a spreading shadow at the edge of the galaxy. Where it touched, stars winked out. The Void Eaters are not a species but a phenomenon, Jin explained. A negation of information itself. They consume knowledge, memory, history, leaving nothing behind. They have destroyed 17 civilizations in the past millennium, Yule added grimly, each more advanced than the last. Now they turn toward the central systems. And Earth? Ta Wu asked, feeling a chill despite the comfortable temperature. Is directly in their path, Min Seo confirmed, along with dozens of other developing worlds. Ta Wu sat in stunned silence, trying to process the scale of the threat. How could he possibly explain this to Earth authorities, who had barely accepted the existence of a single Guardian? As if reading his thoughts, Sentinel placed a hand on his shoulder. You will not face this alone. The Council stands with Earth, as we stand with all worlds in the Void's path. But they won't trust you, Ta Wu said. Not after we escaped. Perhaps, Jin acknowledged, but circumstances have changed. Your Earth authorities have had time to reconsider their approach. Before Ta Wu could ask what Jin meant, a notification appeared on the docking bay's control panel. Another ship was approaching the outpost, a vessel of clearly human design, but larger and more advanced than the one Ta Wu had taken. Earth has found us, Ta Wu said, rising to his feet in alarm. They were meant to, Yule said calmly. The Council sent coordinates once you successfully reached us. The newcomer docked alongside Ta Wu's ship. When the airlock opened, Commander Shin stepped out, followed by Da Hyun and, surprisingly, Director Jin herself. Ta Wu Park, Commander Shin called, her voice carrying across the chamber. We come in peace, seeking dialogue. The Earth representatives approached cautiously, their eyes widening as they took in the other chosen beings and their guardians. We've received data packets from this location for the past 3 days. Director Jin explained, her usual stern demeanor replaced with something close to awe. Information about Guardian technology, compatible with our systems and immediately applicable. A gesture of good faith, Min Seo explained, to demonstrate the benefits of cooperation. We've also detected the phenomenon you call the Void Eaters, Da Hyun added. Our long-range telescopes confirmed the disappearance of stars in exactly the pattern your data predicted. Then you understand the threat we face, Ta Wu said. Director Jin nodded solemnly. We do now. Earth is prepared to form an alliance with the chosen council. That's why we're here. For the next several hours, humans and chosen beings discussed the coming danger and potential defenses. The Guardians shared knowledge freely, and Earth's representatives promised resources and support. As the discussions concluded, Ta Wu found himself standing between worlds, understanding both humanity's fears and the Guardians' ancient purpose. We would like you to serve as Earth's official representative to the chosen council, Commander Shin told him, an ambassador between our worlds. Ta Wu looked around at the gathered beings, human and alien, flesh and energy, all united by a common purpose despite their differences. 6 months ago, he had been a lonely mechanic on a lunar base. Now he stood at the center of an interstellar alliance. I accept, he said simply. Later, as Earth's representatives prepared to return home with news of the alliance, Ta Wu stood with Sentinel at the observation dome, looking out at the stars. Are you certain this is the path you choose? Sentinel asked. To stand between your people and the council will not be easy. Ta Wu nodded. All my life, I felt like I was waiting for something important. Now I know what it was. Together, they watched as Earth's ship departed, carrying plans for humanity's first true interstellar vessels, ships that would soon join a gathering fleet of allied worlds. Ta Wu, once just a skilled mechanic, now stood as Earth's first ambassador to the stars, chosen not by his own kind, but by an ancient guardian who saw in him something extraordinary. And as the darkness approached at the edge of the galaxy, that extraordinary quality might be exactly what was needed to ensure the light would endure.